Welcome to Future Foodcast. I'm Pam Linemiller, your host, and I love our episodes where we have interesting guests with us. But first, I want to thank our sponsor, Farm to Plate. They're a software company building tomorrow's food business ecosystem today. And when was the last time you had some really, really great pizza? Well, we have a company co-founder with us of Rocky Mountain Flatbread. His name is Dominic Fielden. Dominic, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much. Great coming to me.
Yeah, well, we're so excited to unpack this a little bit and find out about your business and really some of the other areas that you've expanded into philanthropically and just using your experience with your business. But why don't we back up a little bit and start in the beginning with how you even got started in this business?
Yeah. Well, my wife and I were both in a boutique management consultancy business in the UK. And we were always passionate about food. We're always passionate about sustainability. My background as a kid growing up, spent a lot of time at my grandparents' farm and hotel. So they were in the hospitality business. And so it became a way of life. You know, in the hotel, they were passionate about local food before it became a bit of a fad. You know, they had their own bakery at the hotel. They had their own butchers at the hotel. They had a small sheep farm outside of the town that they were had their business in. So it was, you know, it was an amazing upbringing as a kid, and it was pretty much infused into my way of being. And I said from the get-go I remember having a conversation with my mother when she asked me what I wanted to do in life. And I said I wanted to be in hospitality. And she said I was insane. I said, no, you don't. It's very hard work. Mm-hmm. And she knew because her parents were in it, so she knew exactly what it was like. And I didn't. You know, I went into investment banking for a bit. I did a management consultancy, but I never left that itch unscratched. I had to get into it at some point. And my wife, Suzanne, was very supportive and I said, all right, let's just do it. We were going to do it in the UK, but at the very last minute, we decided to do it in Canada. We were on a ski holiday in Banff in Alberta. And about a few days into that, we just said, actually, this is where we want to be. So let's do it here. 6 weeks later, we were in Canada. So it was a pretty insane.
Now, hold on a minute. Yes, that's not only starting a new business, but you're changing countries and moving and starting a new business. You're not supposed to make all those major life changes at one time, Dominic. Yeah. I didn't realize that, but who wouldn't fall in love with that area of Canada? It's beautiful.
It's stunning. At the time, I'm looking back on it, it seems insane. At the time, it wasn't a difficult decision. Although we were pretty settled in England, we just, our first child was just one. We had a dog that was just one. And so we were settled. And then it's just like, let's do it.
Amazing.
Actually, it was insane. I left it to chance because we looked for properties that we might want to purchase. And we found one which we liked. And I said to my wife, Suzanne, so let's just leave this to chance. If they accept our offer, we're doing it. If they don't, then we'll stay in England and do this in England. And they wanted 10% down on the property, and we're on holiday. We didn't carry 10% of the value of the property in cash with us. I didn't have it. And I said I could take $500 a day out of the ATM. I'm here for 2 more days. If you take $1,000, we'll do this. If you don't, it's like goodbye. We won't be coming back. And they accepted it. So
that is an amazing story. I didn't know that. Some food entrepreneurs or people that are getting into the business, they plan for years and years, Dominic. And maybe this was obviously in your mind from early on, but your mom dissuaded you, so you pursued other areas where you had obviously some good skills. And I'm sure that financial experience really helped you as you were building and growing the business, because I think a lot of food entrepreneurs, they have that passion for whatever the food business might be, but then they're not maybe as good with the books on the back end and actually making good decisions financially. So that makes a lot of sense. You probably were able to get started on some good footing. but
Yeah.
definitely divine intervention with how it all came about, for sure.
Crazy.
That is a little
Not
crazy.
good.
Okay,
Good.
6 weeks.
Yeah.
Changed your whole life in 6 weeks, moved the 1-year-old dog and the 1-year-old child and your wife to a place that you knew very little about, but you just knew you were going to be there and get started, and take us from there.
Well, the first, and although we were passionate about the food industry, we didn't know anything about it. So the first thing we needed to do is to find people that knew what they were talking about. And so we did that. We got a couple of fantastic chefs.
Did you know you wanted to do flatbread or pizza?
Yes.
Did you know a category?
Yeah.
You did. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, as far as the business planning side,
Right.
we were about 80-90% there already, because we'd already sorted that in England. We'd been researching it and working on it for a couple of years.
Okay.
We just hadn't pulled the trigger. And it was a location change at the very last minute. The planning bit had already been dealt, but we had no idea in the market. All our market research was based on the southern part of England. It was largely based on tourist traffic and weekend traffic. So we didn't know Canmore at all. We didn't know how popular. It is actually a very popular tourist destination, so that's good, as there's very strong weekend traffic. So it ended up being perfect, but we didn't know that going in. But what we did know is that we didn't know what we were talking about. You know, we've never operated a restaurant before. We've never operated a wholesale business before. We needed to surround ourselves with good people.
So you brought in some good chefs who did know about the details.
And a front of house person too.
Good.
And we spent months and months and months going through tastings and all that kind of stuff, and finding locations. And it was a fantastic sort of 9 months of learning. And then we opened up May the 15th, 2004. So almost 20 years ago.
Yes.
I knew at that point that one of the chefs that we brought on board, very creative guy. His background was, 5-star fine dining, and he was looking for a change in his life. But we never thought it would last long. Right? We thought he'll be with us for a few months, maybe 6 months or a year, before he got itchy feet and went off and did something big again. But he stayed with us for a couple of years, which was great. And then our other chef that we brought on board, brilliant operationally, Swiss guy, called Oliver, and he's still with us. So he's been our chef from the very beginning, and great guy. So we had some solid people working for us, and we still do. I've always said, and Suzanne always says, we're nowhere near the best of what we do in our company. No, not even close. So that's why we surround ourselves with good, fun, competent people that we like working with.
Let's not skip over that, Dominic, because I think that is so important, especially as an entrepreneur, that you have to realize what your gifts are and what you're good at, and then what you don't know as much about, and hire that in to complement what you and your wife already had as skill sets. And I think if we have some food entrepreneurs out there listening to us, and I know that we do, I want to make that point really clear, that you were honest about what you could do and then what you couldn't do, and you hired the part that you needed to complement. So, I just need to share.
It's critically important. If you want to grow, if you just want to be, two people holding the wall kind of thing, that's fine, and it works great. But if you do want to grow a bit, and if you do also want some balance in your life, then it's important to not do everything. It's actually really important to learn everything. Like, I'm just as comfortable being in the dish pit cleaning dishes as I am in the front or on the pizza oven. So I can do every station in our business,
right,
if I need to. But I have people that can do it way better than I can.
Yeah, well, tell us about the growth and the scaling, because that also is really important. I mean, you can start out with one location, but you grew to several.
Yeah, we did, and we lost several due to COVID. But we did, and it was another thing that we learned in the business is to not be undercapitalized. The food industry, some industries require no capital, and they're wonderful businesses to go into. And if I was going back into my life again, I'd probably look at other businesses as well as food business that required no capital. Whereas this business is very capital intensive, and you need to use it wisely. But if you want to grow fast, you need a lot of capital. And we didn't have a lot of capital. We had enough to start, enough to get us to stage 2, which was opening up the second restaurant and starting the wholesale frozen pizza business. So we had enough for that. But then after that, we had to grow a lot more organically.
Okay, so you had the restaurant, which was like where people come in and order pizza or maybe get to go, but then you added another part to it, which was a wholesale frozen pizza piece of it for just diversifying the income streams a bit.
Absolutely. We did it for a couple of reasons, or a few reasons. From a marketing perspective, we did it because marketing and advertising is expensive to do. The margins are tight in the restaurant business and the food business in general. So if you can start up a complementary business on the side that acts as a free marketing tool, then all the better. And that was a major reason why we started the frozen pizza business, because it enabled us. Well, there's another reason too, that in the restaurant business, you're busy at lunchtime, busy in the evening, and not busy in between those two times. So we thought, what can our chefs do between 2:00 and 5:00 in the afternoon? Oh, we thought we can make make pizzas and freeze them and sell them. But it became an obvious thing in our community when we were selling, tens of thousands of frozen pizzas a year. And every time our pizza went into somebody's house, it was an opportunity for our brand to be recognized. And we made money from it. So we didn't have to pay for advertising. This is an opportunity for people to see Rocky Mountain flatbread as they pull it out of the freezer, put the box to one side, put the pizza in, make sure it's good, make sure it's your restaurant pizza frozen, not highly processed product. So it had to be high quality. It had to match our passion for high quality and local ingredients. But it made sense. And that was two parts of the what I call our marketing stall. And then we had, to keep a stall up, you need 3 legs. And the third leg to our stall was our non-profit company, which still is called Earth Bites.
Okay.
And it works with elementary school kids, teach them how to build school gardens, vegetable gardens, grow food, learn about where food comes from, how to grow it, how to harvest it, how to cook it and make nutritional snacks and drinks from it. And we are passionate about food, so that's a natural thing to do. But if you're looking at it from a pure business perspective, it was another opportunity to get into the community. It was another opportunity for our brand to be recognized. And
well, may I ask, did you grow your own ingredients, some of your own ingredients that went into your own products?
We
okay.
do. Not a lot. And in the school gardens, and we didn't design it this way, just that nature and the school year just coincides pretty badly. So it works really well to grow and harvest at the end of the school year. But all the great food comes when the kids have gone home.
Okay.
Apart from the long stuff like garlic that you can store and potatoes and stuff, which we do.
Right, because you don't have balmy winters up there in Canada.
Not in Alberta. We do in Vancouver, which is where we are now.
Okay.
It's pretty much like England. Everything grows very well here. But a lot of the stuff that we harvest from the garden at this time of year when the kids are away, we use in the restaurant.
Okay.
Yeah, so yesterday we did some harvesting and came into the restaurant a whole bunch of zucchinis, which will get used in the pizza specials over the next 5 days.
Nice.
Or they'll make a soup with it. I'm not sure what the chefs will do with it, but it's a good way to utilize some of the food that we can't keep for the autumn.
Yeah, I think it's so great for the children to be learning by doing, and they might not get exposed to that in the home. And like you said, it's another opportunity for your brand to be able to be engaged with your community that you're involved in. And I hear that theme a lot from more local providers like you are. You're in your communities with your restaurants and you want to be involved with them. And it's just a way to kind of partner. Without any official business model necessarily. There's not a straight line to the profit. It's just goodwill to the community. You're able to use the expertise you have and share in a positive way for that nonprofit piece. That's
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
It builds a stronger foundation for your business.
Right. But you spoke about you had several restaurants and then you lost several due to COVID. Can you share with us a little bit about, because you're not the only business owner in the food industry that had some challenges during COVID. How did you handle COVID? How did you make decisions about what you were going to do?
Yeah, it was a surprise to everyone. I don't think there's one person that hasn't been affected in some way or another, negatively or positively. It was certainly a shock to everyone. It was a huge. I mean, being an entrepreneur, you're sort of used to challenges, and you're maybe perversely enjoy the odd challenge and put yourself into positions that you have to get yourself out of. So although it was a shock, it wasn't, and it was something that we felt comfortable with, that we could deal with it. We could ride this thing. We had the confidence that we could ride it. It was very different for many of our staff. And that was a bit of a shock. The anxiety that it created was something that we'd never seen before, both with our staff and with our customers too. And that was a bigger shock than anything else that we experienced. We were fortunate that we had the frozen pizza business. So while the restaurant business pretty much closed down, the wholesale frozen pizza business significantly grew.
Right. And you couldn't have known that at when you added that on as an additional stream of income, but that worked definitely in your favor when COVID hit.
There's a lot of people that were using the word pivot, and people had to pivot to stay in business. And we didn't have to pivot. We'd already pivoted.
That's right. You already added on your pivot.
Exactly. So we were incredibly lucky. And looking back on it wasn't done by design, of course. But looking back on it, it was another reason to be in a complementary business. Yeah. So when one business suffered, the other business could grow. Yeah. So we weren't. We personally were okay with it. We dealt with it, but our timing was bad. That we would literally just opened up 2 more restaurants.
Oh wow.
And that was tough, and they were franchised businesses. Okay. And it was awful. I mean, they both, one closed down immediately, and the other bounced along as long as it could do. And then there was another franchise business we had in Banff, in Alberta, that closed down, and eventually, actually, one of ours did. So we had 2 in Vancouver, and our flagship one in Vancouver. We had to shut down just over a year ago. Like, it made it through COVID, but the businesses around there were no longer there. When everything was reopened again. So we lost pretty much our entire lunch business and some of our evening business. Yeah,
so that local economy really affected what you could do with the restaurant.
Yeah. So we sadly made the decision to let that one go and focus on the other one that was thriving and doing well.
Sure.
So we went from 2 restaurants to 4 places pretty quickly, and we went from 6 to 2 just as quickly. Wow.
Yeah, and those are the hard decisions that you have to make as a business owner, and also consulting with your franchisees. And I know, that's a partnership, and that's a tough decision to make, because that's emotional for them as well.
Yeah, that was not good times for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you've got two thriving restaurants and that are able to move forward. You still have your frozen pizza business. That's not all you've done. Tell us about, you have another philanthropic piece that you did that I think is really interesting as far as using the resources that you had and your expertise to help some of the local peoples in the Canadian area. Can you share with us about that?
Yeah. So we, in the Earth Bites program, that's predominantly working with elementary schools. So we work with about 6 or 7 schools in the Vancouver area. It was a difficult thing to begin with because no one had done it before. And with government regulations, as they are, they're very strong here in British Columbia and in Canada. So having the Vancouver School Board be on board with this kind of stuff was a bit of a challenge. But eventually we just started working with the parent advisory councils, and it worked really well. So we have a bunch of nutritionists and gardeners that work with us, so they really understand how to grow food and how to teach. Most of them have been trained as teachers as well, or been through teacher training, so they understand working with kids, and passionate about food, and that has worked beautifully over the years. And then we also had the business that we closed down in Vancouver. We had a shipping container at the back of there where we grew a lot of our lettuces and some of our herbs as well. In fact, we grew lettuces and herbs within the restaurant as well. There's a lot of greenery in that particular place. It was a very large restaurant, which was fantastic. But when we closed that business down, we had to get rid of the shipping container because the people that took over the site didn't want it. And our other location didn't have the space for it. And none of the schools could take it because of regulations again.
Right. What do you do with a shipping container?
And a shipping container that's designed to grow food.
Right.
It's a hydroponic shipping container. So it's
very cool.
It's super, super cool, but no one wanted it. And we couldn't give it away to a local business because, again, regulations are tough. And this shipping container had to be seismically connected to the core of the earth, I think, for it to be accepted by the local government here. So no one wanted it. Sad, because it was a great little container and produced a lot of food. And then someone gave us the smart idea to hook up with one of the local indigenous nations, First Nations here in Canada, because they have their own regulations, they have their own ways of doing things, and are very close to the earth, and want to sort of get back to growing food again, as they used to. And that was an eye-opener. So we got in touch with one of the local First Nations, and they said, yeah, bring it here, which is great. So we put it on the truck, craned it over there and craned it off, and trained them how to do hydroponic gardening and produce phenomenal heads of lettuce, hundreds of heads of lettuce a week from this container, which they could then distribute to the members of their community. And that relationship has grown to the point where they asked Suzanne, my wife, to build a 5-year strategic plan to assist them in developing food sovereignty, so they could be self-sustainable as a nation. So we've been building raised bed gardens there. We've been teaching kids there as well, because there's a school on location, and we have markets every Wednesday there. It's been a phenomenal experience, and very much a give back to the community as well.
Mm-hmm. I love so many things about this story.
Yeah, it's fun. And we've learned so much about Indigenous ways, Indigenous culture, and our history here in Canada, which is very much been rewritten over the decades, and is being reconciled more recently, which is a fantastic thing. So it's been fantastic learning experience for us, as much as probably more of a learning experience for us than we've actually helped them. But we still have a very strong relationship with them, so that's blooming well.
And Dominic, that's often the case when you think I'm gonna be giving this shipping container and teaching them to help them be self-sustaining and learn how to do hydroponic farming. And then in reality, in the end, you have actually gained a lot more than you've given. And that's the beauty of stories like that. Now you have a wonderful partnership. There have been benefits beyond what you could have even initially known might come out of that relationship, and lots of benefits. And I just think it's great.
Yeah. And who knows where it'll go? Maybe we'll get more shipping containers over here and build more hydroponic gardens.
Well, it does sound like it could definitely be a duplicatable type program for a number of different areas. I think that's a great idea. Well, you came to Canada almost 20 years ago to get started with this business that you wanted to start, and here we are, and you've done more than you could have thought you would, I think, as you set out about it in the beginning, you and your wife. And I think that's really great. And thank you for sharing all of the, I guess, landmarks along the way, or the road signs along the way, and how a little bit of insight into how you made some decisions, and, the benefits of bringing in experts where you're not necessarily the expert. Is there anything else you would like to share with our audience before we go today, Dominic, that you think would be helpful to them, or just a positive word moving forward that you would like to leave with them?
There's a few. I mean, definitely have fun in your business. Work-life balance is an important thing. Be true to that. Be true to yourself. Be curious. And from being curious, you become more innovative. And that's so important in a competitive world. It is for the restaurant business, of course, but for the wholesale business, it really is. And it's important. And I'm really lucky. I go back to England at least once a year, or pop into Europe. And I'm always, when I'm on holiday over there, I'm always going into supermarkets and checking out what the people in Europe are doing with their frozen pizzas, and then bring those ideas back. So it's good to get inspiration out of your geographic area. Because then you can come back and be innovative, and they think you're innovative. You're not actually. You're just borrowing something from somewhere else.
I'll never tell. Well, now this will be available. You just shared your secret with, we don't know how many people.
Everyone should do it. Go on holiday and do it.
Okay. Well, that's great. Dominic, thank you so much for being on our podcast with us.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
I also want to thank our sponsor, Farm to Plate, making this podcast possible. They are enabling better food supply chain management. You can find out more at farmtoplate.io.
Thanks for listening to Future Foodcast. Future Foodcast is powered by Farm to Plate, the leading food blockchain platform. Subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to stay up to date with the very latest innovations in the food industry.